Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. So, a lot of you over the years have asked me to talk more about Audie. And yeah, he's had this very strange week. So, thought, yeah, this is probably as good an opportunity as any. So let's start with what went well for Audie this week. Jane came over for a visit. Now, Audie adores Jane. He absolutely loves her, and he stalks her. So Jane coming over is like, this will be like the high point of his week. And when she stopped over, I stepped out on the porch and shut the screen door behind me. Audie was still inside, and he let out this pathetic wail. So, of course, I had to open the door, let him come out and hop on Jane, which he did. And then he immediately threw himself down on the patio, rolled around to impress her. I imagine he wants her to see what a good patio roller he is, because he definitely values Jane's good opinion. So while we were talking, he stayed. The first half hour we were talking, he would not let up on her. He was in her lap. He was crawling on her shoulder. He was nuzzling up against her, and she was petting him, like vigorously the whole time, but it wasn't quite enough. And when she wanted to show me some paperwork, I had to put Audie down because he wasn't going to let her. And then he sat at her feet and wailed until I finally told him he could come back up again. And then this went on. And when he finally got what was hopefully as much cuddle as he needed, he hopped off. Jane didn't know where he went, but I did, because I could see him. He was sleeping under her chair. He does that because he doesn't want Jane to leave. And if she tries to leave, he'll bite her ankles. Like, he'll just grab onto them and just start chewing. I assume, now, he hasn't told me this, but this is my assumption, that he figures that if he bites her ankles, he will immobilize her, and she will not be able to go. But the problem with this reasoning is people do not like being bitten by cats. So this is not a good way to encourage someone to stay. But Audie hasn't worked that out yet. So we've gotten into this routine where when Jane wants to leave, I will pick Audie up, bring him, inside or in my bedroom somewhere. In this case, we were out on the patio because it was a beautiful day. So he goes inside, and then Jane can leave. Otherwise, he will, he'll bite her ankles, frankly. But that was the start of what I expected to be a really good week for him. And then the next day, a couple of guys came over to do some work on my roof, and they were both cat lovers. So needless to say, Audie can spot a cat lover a mile away. He was all over them. They were working. He was telling them how to do their jobs. It was perfect. Audie got to be boss baby, tell everybody what to do. He got Jane time, and I thought, this is a great week for a little cat. But I was wrong. So we're going to break for the intro. When we come back, I'll tell you where it all went wrong. So, where things started going wrong. The night before last, the last 2 nights, it's been really very hot here, and our overnight temperatures have been in the mid-70s, which is, for nighttime temperatures in Pennsylvania, that's pretty hot. So, night before last, Audie had come into bed with me, as he always does. I go into bed, he gives me a chance to settle in, and just about when I'm ready to fall asleep, that's when he pounces and says, "Wake up and pet a cat." So he stayed with me because I have the air conditioning on because it was so hot. But eventually I turned the air conditioning off, and Audie left the room, hunting for greener pastures, or perhaps cooler pastures, I'm sure. But I went back to sleep, and I got up about 4 in the morning, and I went out straight to my computer because that's how my day starts. And I started checking email, and a few minutes later, I heard this incredible wail from Audie. I thought he had hurt himself. I had heard a strange little crashing noise somewhere in that wail, and I thought, oh God, he's knocked something over, he's cut himself, he's upset, he's injured. Well, no. I went into the kitchen, and he's perched on the windowsill, and the screen is hanging half out of the window. And Audie is sitting on the windowsill, like in full combat mode. Somebody or something, well, I assume something, not somebody, was trying to violate his territory, and Audie was just sitting there on the windowsill saying, ooh, you picked the wrong house, my friend. So I wanted to remove him, but clearly his adrenaline was, shooting through the roof at this point. So I thought it was a bad idea to try to pick him up. Audie has never injured me, but when a cat is in fight mode like that, basically you're asking for trouble if you try to pick them up. So I'm in nothing but a skimpy little nightgown because it's in the mid-70s at 4 in the morning. And so I didn't have anything I could take off and throw on him. But fortunately for me, my apron was in the kitchen. So I grabbed that, drop it on the cat, scoop him up, get him out of there, close the window. That seemed to solve the problem. Once the window was closed, he was fine. There are 2 other windows in that kitchen, both of which were open. But that particular window being closed resolved the crisis. So he settled down, and it was that morning, a couple of hours later, when the sun came up, let me put it that way, when the sun came up so I could go out and actually do some work in the yard, I fixed the screen. I got it back in the window. Everything was fine. Yes, he had broken the screen, but I was able to get it back together and get it lodged into the window where it's supposed to be. And I did think at some point I should probably take this screen out and super glue that joint back together just to be on the safe side. But Audie's never done anything like that before, so it didn't seem like a problem. Well, boy, was I wrong, because this morning I got up, and it wasn't 4 in the morning. It was later than that. Got up and start checking my email, going to the kitchen, getting a drink, and suddenly I hear Audie screaming. And I look around. Audie is not in the kitchen with me, which is where I was at the time, and he's continuing to yell. Now, like I said, there are 3 windows, and they were all open, so I could hear that it was coming from outside. I opened the front door, and there was Audie sitting on the porch, and my first thought was, good Lord, I locked my cat out overnight. And then I thought, wait a minute, no. He had been in my bedroom last night, just like he is every night. And no, I did not get out of bed in the middle of the night and throw him out. So then I go back over to that window, the one where he knocked out the screen the night before. No screen in the window. The screen is out in the yard. The cat is on the porch. So what this means is I'm going to have to close that window at night, because he has figured out that he now knows he can take out the screen and release himself on his own recognizance, which I do not care for. If he is out, I want the parole board to know about it. So we're going to have to deal with this. But this is not the only thing that's going on. This is just part of what's been happening. I think it was about Monday. I cleaned Audie's cat box out, either Sunday or Monday, changed the litter. And a few hours later, I went into the bathroom. And I'm looking around in the toilet, and there is cat litter in the toilet. So my first thought was, because Audie's cat box lives in the bathroom, because this is where we go when we do our business. So he goes in his box, I have the toilet, life is good. I thought maybe I must have scooped a little too vigorously, maybe skittered some litter into the toilet. It didn't seem very likely, but it was the only reasonable explanation I could think of. So I clean it up, flush the toilet, that's it. I thought, okay, I was a little sloppy cleaning the cat box, and I did not give it another thought. Until a day or two later, I go back in the bathroom, and there's cat litter in my toilet again. And I know this is not the same litter, because that last batch of litter, I had scrubbed that out of the toilet. I flushed it all down. That's gone. This is new litter in my toilet. So at this point, it seems pretty clear that Audie is putting cat litter in the toilet, which is strange, and I'm not sure how he could do it, because he is a very clever little cat. But, I mean, how is he transporting the litter from the box to the toilet? And there's no litter on the floor in between the two. I don't get it. So, I thought, we'll just keep an eye on this. The day after that, I found litter in the bathtub. Now, Audie, I'm sure I must have mentioned this, Audie loves to come into the bathtub after I've had a shower and play in whatever leftover water he can find and lick the water off the sides of the bathtub. It's kind of disgusting, but because of this, all of the soaps I use, shampoos, whatever, they have got to be non-toxic, because I know Audie will get to them sooner or later, because he does love that. Sometimes he'll come into the shower when I'm in there. Usually he waits until I leave, and not by much. It's like I'm stepping out while he's stepping in. But this time he had gone in at some point after I had showered. Again, cat litter. So I don't quite know what's going on. I mean, is he washing his paws in the toilet, in the bathtub? Maybe, because certainly there's no litter anywhere else. No litter on the floor. The litter was in the toilet, in the bathtub, and in his cat box. And his cat box is like 3 or 4 feet away from either the tub or the toilet. It's a bathroom, so it's not like huge, but it's several feet away. How could he have dragged litter from the box into the toilet? How could he have dragged it into the bathtub? Maybe it got stuck in between his paws and he was trying to wash it out. If so, that's a very clever thing to do. So naturally, I suspect that's not really the answer. It's like my brain tells me I am anthropomorphizing, because cats do not have the presence of mind to go into a toilet to wash debris out of their paws. He's a cat, not a raccoon. And raccoons, by the way, will wash anything. But cats, no, not so much. And usually when they've got stuff in their paws, they try to lick and chew it out. I don't know what's going on with this. So I guess the bottom line is we have had a truly strange week. Audie is depositing cat litter in various places in the bathroom, and I don't know why. He has figured out that if he knocks a screen out of the window, he can be free. He owns the world. So now I have to close that window before I go to bed at night. And this is the wrong time of year to be closing windows. I mean, for heaven's sake, it's August. I want the windows open. But I have to do that. And clearly, it's only that window, because he hasn't been near the other windows. There are 3 windows in the kitchen, and there are other open windows elsewhere. Hasn't touched any of them, just that one particular window. And so I'm going to have to deal with that. I think what I need to do to deal with the window is pull that screen out and either replace it, get a new screen, or do some kind of repair on that screen that makes it less likely he'll be able to knock it out. Now, he will probably always be able to knock the screen out, because even if he can't knock it out of the window, he's got claws. He can just shred that thing and get out. But, gosh, he's been with me for about, I don't know, I'm guessing maybe 12 years at this point, and he's never figured this out before now. Now he's figuring it out. Yeah, just my luck. So, that is what's going on in Audie's life. And it is just plain crazy. So, now that we're through with Audie, I wanted to, what I had originally planned before Audie started, really giving me so much material for a video. What I really wanted to talk about was that I had come across some articles about the disappearance of cursive penmanship. And we have discussed this occasionally in the comments. People have made comments saying, they don't teach cursive anymore. And yes, I'm pretty clear that a lot of schools don't do this. It's not necessarily new. When I was in junior high school, so this would have been mid-60s, 66, 67. When you go into junior high school, you get kids from a lot of other elementary schools where things are done differently. And I would say at least 30% of the kids I was in junior high school with did not write in cursive. Those were the kids that came from very progressive educational systems where I'm not sure what they were learning, but it wasn't cursive. Let me just put it that way. In the 60s, progressive education usually meant, let's let the kids have a whole lot of fun and be really, really creative and watch as their math scores tank. It was more about maintaining a creative and enjoyable environment for students than actually teaching them a lot of skills. Sorry, but that is the way it was. So I was accustomed to dealing with people my own age who could not write in cursive. They would print. And I would be sitting in class with them. I'm taking notes in cursive. And the girl next to me would be looking over my shoulder saying, how are you getting this down so quickly? Cursive. That's how I'm getting it down so quickly. And I am not even a fast writer. I've always been a very slow writer because, frankly, I couldn't see what I was writing. In the Middle Ages, they had scribes. These were monks. And I'm not talking about the monks that would recopy the illuminated manuscripts. Bless their hearts, they were a talented lot and a patient lot because it could take years to recopy a book. When I'm talking about scribes, I'm talking about scribes in the modern sense. They would have monks who could write down a verbatim conversation in the 15th century with cumbersome grammatical rules, with quill pens and ink made of iron oxide on parchment, and they could still take down a conversation as it was spoken. Remarkable. By the way, they worked in teams. But still, even with two of them working together, that is a remarkable accomplishment. Could I do that? No, I could not. And could people in general do that in the 19th and 20th centuries? No. Which is why shorthand was developed, so that you could take dictation like that. So, yeah, I was not even fast, but I was so much faster than people who had to block print everything that was being said. That, more than anything else, taught me the value of cursive when I realized how very quickly I could take notes. And like I say, I'm not even quick. I'm sure there are people that are so much faster than I am. But I can probably take notes when I'm in the swing of things. So throw me in a classroom for a few weeks, and I can probably take notes at about 30 words a minute. It's not taking dictation. The professor would be saying something, I would be processing it and writing it out in my own words. I could probably do about 30 words a minute. Now, if you had a good touch typist at a keyboard, could they beat that? Yes, they could. Absolutely. A good typist can do upwards of 60 words a minute, some of them, and that's just to qualify as a reasonably good typist. Some people can go much, much faster than that. However, can young people in the educational system today type at that rate? No, they cannot. And there are two problems for this. One, they are not teaching touch typing in lieu of cursive. It's like no more cursive, but nothing to replace it. And touch typing would be a reasonable replacement if you buy in to the underlying premise that cursive is no longer necessary, with everything coming out on either a keyboard or, block print, the printed page, newspapers, books, texts, whatever. They're all coming out in block print. Now, if you buy into the underlying rationale that technology is making cursive obsolete, why aren't you teaching kids to type on a keyboard? Well, there are two problems with this. One, not all kids have access to a keyboard. A lot of kids today are doing what I do on a computer on their phones. And that is not a keyboard. Well, it is a keyboard, but it's not a keyboard that you can put your fingers on and type quickly. Touch typing? No. It's a totally different system. So instead of teaching kids cursive, they're working with two different systems. A computer, assuming they have one, with a standard keyboard, a keyboard from a typewriter, basically. Or they're working with a phone, and let me just... Okay, forget that. I was going to try to show you on my phone, but since I rarely use the little keyboard function on my phone, I couldn't find it. Anyway, you end up with the little keyboard on the phone, which is this big, and I understand most of the kids are typing with their thumbs. I type with one finger, very hunt and peck on that little keyboard, which is one of the reasons I'm much more comfortable with my laptop and, a real full-size keyboard. But my argument with taking cursive away is it's not being replaced with another skill set. Can I stop cursive from being excluded from the curriculum? No. I would imagine that no one will even be having this conversation 20 years from now, because cursive will be the domain of the archivist and the historian. We will have an entire generation or two of young people who cannot read cursive. Right now, we have a generation of young people who cannot tell time on an analog clock. Clocks are digital. Do we have a clock? Yes, I do. I have a clock. Can you see that? Yep, there's a clock. So, they can tell time on a digital clock, but if you show them an analog clock, that round thing with the hands, they can't work it out. They don't know what it means. They do not know the difference between 10 minutes of 5 and 10 minutes after 5. No idea how this worked out. They're not sure if the little hand is the hour and the big hand is the minutes, and if so, why is there no second hand? We are raising a group of young people who are technologically literate, but they are also technologically dependent, and they have lost so many skills. And I think cursive is starting to bother me when I realized that it's not being replaced. Now, see, I've been out of the educational arena for a while, not teaching. So I just naturally assumed that any competent teacher teaching a 3rd, 4th, 5th grade level classroom would either be teaching cursive or teaching touch typing, that it would be one or the other. It wouldn't be a question of eliminating one and putting nothing in its place. Because if you lose cursive, which allows you to write quickly without giving you the skills to type quickly, then you are taking away the final product. It doesn't matter to me which skill set you use. If it's writing cursive or typing quickly, you're taking the final product that would come from either of those skill sets away. Quick recording of information is gone. Absolutely. So I thought I wanted to mention that, mostly because I'm interested in your thoughts on this. Are you seeing the same thing? Because I'm sure if I sit down and think about it, I'm going to realize many other areas of life in which we're not properly preparing young people to go out into the world. But cursive has it's become the poster child in my mind for the harm we are doing. So anyway, that was what I had intended to talk about before I got sidetracked with Audie's crazy week. Thank you for being with us. We are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. I look forward to seeing you next time. And in the meanwhile, have a terrific day.